Hello, everyone. My name is Kip Schauer. We're going to wait about 2 more minutes, let everybody get on the live stream, and then we're going to get started. So just a couple more minutes. Hello, everyone. My name is Kip Schauer, Global Head of Media and Entertainment here at Google. I want to welcome everybody this afternoon to the Google Media and Entertainment webinar. A couple housekeeping notes. There is a chat window next to the live stream. We'll be monitoring that and posting answers as the chat goes on throughout the webinar. I would like to take this couple minutes here to introduce the Google Cloud team. Some people might not know that Google Cloud, we put a major enterprise or a major focus on the enterprise accounts around the world over the last 2 or 3 years. Google Cloud has built out local teams around the world. So you will have a local team consisting of sales as well as sales engineering. We also have solution architect teams with deep industry expertise. We also have dedicated professional services organizations. We have teams that are dedicated to working with our partners. And we also have industry specialists that come out of our office of the CTO. So we have a lot of resources here to help you make your migration over to the cloud. Today, we're going to focus specifically on the media and entertainment vertical. We have our media and entertainment solution experts around the world. And today I'm going to introduce Matt Brinkman. He's been at Google for over 2 years. He started in our ad division, which gives him a deep understanding on the monetization challenges that our media and entertainment industry faces today. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Matt. Thanks a lot. And Matt, it's all yours.
Thanks, Kip. So thanks for joining. Yeah, I just wanted to go over a few things today. Number one, so part of the Google Media and Entertainment team, we're focused out of Austin, Texas, where we're kind of spread across the globe. The majority of our engineering team are on the West Coast, and we have sales resources kind of on the East as well as Central. So like Kip mentioned, I came from the DoubleClick group as a part of Google, and then have been in cloud sort of since then. And when it came to the DoubleClick background, really did a lot to recognize sort of the importance of monetization and where the industry is headed for video advertising. So there's a few things I'd like to take us through today. One is some of the trends that our team is seeing from a media perspective and seeing from a monetization perspective. I'd like to talk a little bit about what Google is doing about these things. So what Google Cloud is presenting as an offering, and then talk some about our existing customers and what we're doing for them as well. So to start things off, I really have two things I'd like to make clear today. One is what Google Cloud is doing. So what Google Cloud can do, and then what video can be done on top of Google Cloud. And we'll talk a little bit about the industry as well. So one of the, I know cloud migration is kind of a hot topic, and it's something that comes up often in our line of work. Is how is your company making the transition? How is the retail industry moving to the cloud? How is healthcare moving to the cloud? Media and entertainment has been a little slower in this migration, and it's mostly due to a few things. You know, I've seen recently that it's only 14% of the media companies that are really adopting public cloud currently. So if you think about, and that number may be low, but if you think about 86% of the rest of the media groups hesitating on that shift to public, why is that? And I think it's due to a number of things, but one that we're seeing often is sort of a reliance on specialized hardware. So when it comes to things like really having high bandwidth requirements, needing certain video cards, needing potentially graphical processing units as well as CPUs, these are things that have made it a little slower in us moving directly to the cloud. So another thing we've been seeing change here is that some of your traditional cloud providers, the IBM, Microsoft, Amazon groups are starting to offer more and more cloud services. And Google's certainly one of them as well, where they're saying, yes, we have cloud infrastructure, but how can we then create solutions out of that cloud infrastructure? How can we take our storage offerings and our compute offerings and create specific solutions out of those? So we're seeing that with more and more cloud vendors. You know, we're seeing shifts where at IBC this year, I don't know how many of you were in Amsterdam, but the IBC committee finally finished the approval of the new standards. So the carriage of video and audio across IP was finalized during IBC this year. And I think people in this initial group are seeing a lot of advantages and flexibility. When you're operating in a cloud environment over IP, it's a little easier to move to new services, or as protocols are rapidly changing, going from 4K to 8K, right? Embracing HDR, and things with virtual reality as well. Some of these new services are a lot easier to use if you're a cloud native environment. So you see the vendor space growing in cloud. You see more and more offerings coming out that are trying to blend their cloud approach with their video approach. And you see more customers starting to replace some of the legacy hardware, some of the legacy very nuanced specific hardware with more commodity-based servers that you can run software on top of. And I think it's putting people in a place where they have more options, more flexibility, and can make pivots to new features faster. I think the whole goal here, or at least Google's goal, is to remove as many distractions as we can from this process. As if we can get our customers back to focused on what they do well, which is create great content, well, then we're doing our jobs. So I think that's where a lot of this focus is leading to, is a really focused approach for the customers on this is what we want to spend our money on, and not on managing infrastructure. So one other way we're trying to help customers get back to their focus on content is through automation. There's a large one of the I saw that between three of the larger OVPs, I won't name them, but the ones that have a lot of the content out there today, between those three, they're planning on spending $14 billion in 2018 just on new content creation. So it's really that if you have that amount of money going toward new content, you don't want to be spending that money on nuanced sort of individual tasks. So we're trying to help with that with automation. And another large OVP has come out and said, hey, they're saving $1 billion a year using AI workflow automation. So they're able to simplify some of their processes enough that they're saving that amount of money. And it's, again, to get them back to their primary focus. So the AI offerings, you can call it artificial intelligence, is I'll try to be careful with the acronyms, but artificial intelligence versus machine learning, or ML, sort of go hand in hand. And we're seeing a much greater aptitude for adoption here, especially for technology suppliers. It's dropping quickly, where everybody's starting to say, hey, these workflows are valuable and they are worth testing. And sometimes there's a slow startup with training some of these artificial intelligence models. But once they get moving and you've made the initial investment, people are seeing significant gains. So AI is growing. A big area that this automation aspect is becoming prevalent is in live to VOD. VOD is continuing to grow. Live is where it all starts, but we can't count VOD out because we're seeing that it's continuing to grow, and it's going to reach something like 200 million households over the next 3 years. So if VOD is still trending upward and live is table stakes, you have to have solid live to VOD workflows. And we're doing a lot around this space to try and allow customers to organize and schedule when this live content is going to be stored and for how long. So with this growing OTT demand, over the top platform demand, and for online video platforms in general, customers are starting to create their own offerings here to try and remain competitive. I mean, if everybody has live and everybody has VOD, you have to compete with your own platform in a lot of ways. So for automation, again, the biggest things we're seeing is metadata management, the automation of ingest, the automation of live to VOD streaming, and then APIs as well that we're seeing for this machine learning and for artificial intelligence. So the last key trend I want to talk about is monetization, and just that we're seeing this come up more and more as the first question when it comes to new services. And as the industry transitions from linear to over the top, sort of from legacy to now digital, companies are having to offer more and more of these live channels, and they're doing it quickly without always recognizing the revenue associated. So if you're being pressured to make all of your content available on every medium, you might rush to do that prior than figuring out your monetization strategy first. And that's a shift we've been seeing recently, where customers are now starting with that question before we even talk about ingest or before we even talk about repackaging the content. We're talking about, how are we going to monetize it? Do you have triggers in your ad? I mean, these are the questions that are coming up for us first now, instead of as an afterthought. A big piece of this is also, our customers going to start doing an advertising-based monetization system, so like AVOD, or are they going to do a subscription-based monetization, which would be SVOD? I think there's pros and cons to each. We're seeing a lot of AVOD users because it has a lower sort of cost to upstart, has a little bit of a it scales quicker in a lot of cases just because of the amount of CRM data required for tracking an SVOD system and the payment gateways. So it's two different approaches. Obviously, either way, you're going to be making money for your company, but we're seeing AVOD sort of trend ahead between the two models. There are obviously large counter examples to that, and I'm sure you can think of some large OTT providers and online services that are very subscription-based and doing well. So the last piece of sort of monetization and what people are focusing on is, how can we be smarter about inserting for these ad breaks? How can we be smarter about how long is the gap going to be between content and the break and the remaining content? So how can we minimize the amount of black space that users are going to see in between if you have a free throw, for instance, or in a basketball game, you have very short limited time in between each change to show, are you going to have 30 seconds or are you going to have 15? And that window changes throughout the course of the broadcast. So how can we be better about automatically detecting where those breaks should be, even if there isn't a marker available? And so machine learning and artificial intelligence are a big part of that as well, to determine, can we be smarter about these ad breaks? So that's a little bit about what we've been seeing from our customers and the industry individuals we work with. I'd like to talk a little bit about what Google is doing in this space and how Google Cloud is specifically focused on media and entertainment. Google Cloud has made a lot of investments into the video supply chain. And really, from ingest all the way through distribution, we have services that we provide here to kind of seamlessly integrate and give a customer a one-stop shop for how they're going to get their content published out to their users. And that'll even go so far as CDN delivery, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But from left to right here, I'll start with just how we do signal ingest. We do have a Google encoder that we can provide and that we pick up streams from. That Google encoder typically picks up an HD-SDI stream, which we encode and pass up the line, usually as an MPEG-TS format, but we do it in a number of ways. We want to get your content from your camera into the cloud as soon as possible, because that's where we see the most scalability when it comes to transcoding, when it comes to creating new renditions of the content. So we capture via the Google encoder. We also capture via live entry points, via HLS. We transcode and we give you control over these transcoding profiles, whether you're wanting to do 5 renditions of MPEG dash or maybe multiple renditions of HLS. You have all this control in the platform itself. We do have a cloud editor as well. So if you're familiar with some of the legacy products that existed, and some of them have been deprecated recently from the social channel, but we have now our own cloud editor to allow you to log in, create highlights, and to make adjustments to your live to VOD. So if you have a live to VOD asset that you're capturing routinely and you want to create highlights from that VOD asset, we have an editor for that. But we can also pull clips directly out of a live stream, give you the ability to take a sports highlight, for example, and publish it to social without having to go through your normal workflow, to go directly from live to social. And there's a lot of value that our customers have seen with that. This is all built around the Google Envato CMS. So Envato originally developed the CMS years ago and was acquired by Google actually just a year and a half ago, so in 2016. And upon acquiring, we've made a number of sort of adjustments and improvements to the system, giving it the scale of Google Cloud. And now we have a cloud-based CMS that users can log into and monitor and manage content. So that CMS, that stands for Content Management System. Specifically, we call it the MCP, or the Media Content Platform, if I refer to it as MCP. Once we have content and assets loaded into the system, we will put you in a place where you can publish those out to a number of places. We have syndication destinations that we manage, and we have over 100 destinations that we maintain the profile for. And what you're able to do is log in and check the box for where you want to publish assets or where you want to publish a live stream. You could go into a live stream that you're pulling from an entry point and say you want to send it to YouTube and Facebook and to a number of places, including DirecTV or other Hulu and some of these other destinations. You can control that on the fly. So we maintain those profiles for you so that you don't have to track down the resolution settings for each of these destinations. And we do have a system within these live streams and these VOD assets to make calls back and forth to your ad server. So if you're serving ads via DFP or if you're serving ads via Freewheel, we partner with your ad server and make a call directly to it based on an ad tag every time an ad break comes up. So we're reading your video signal, we're checking for the ad break, we make a call directly to the ad server, and then we transcode and stitch the ad into the content itself. And it's important to note that this is all done, can be done client side and server side, but we've seen a lot of advantages to doing it server side because of the ability, sort of the highly performant nature of the stream, and you don't have to worry about ad blockers. So there's advantages to both. And finally, we do have players that we have provided for the connected devices and for Android and iOS. These players are HTML5 based, and we have an SDK for each of them. So if you're wanting to design a custom player and you're wanting to do DRM, or you're designing a custom player for your iPhone app, we provide you with the SDK and you provide it to your client-side development team, and it plugs and plays. There's a number of places today that you can see the Google Envato player in use. A lot of our existing customers have the player on their websites and on their apps, and we'll talk about those here in a moment. And finally, from a reporting perspective, this is all primarily done through our third-party integrations. We have a partnership with Google Analytics to read player data. We partner with Adobe Heartbeat, and we partner with some of the other industry groups like Conviva, and Moat. And that's all to give sort of you the most control over where we want to be pulling data from and how. This is an example of what the Envato architecture would look like on Google Cloud, where you can see on the far left, we have our encoder picking up a live stream, transcoding it, ingesting our triggers, and then moving on to Google Cloud, where we can transcode, create renditions. We cache content on the Google CDN. We store content on Google Cloud Storage, and then we publish out to the Envato players. So really, it was a very high functioning platform before Google made the purchase, which is why Google was interested. But since then, we've seen a lot of great growth in sort of what we can do from a performance perspective now that we're leveraging the Google network and now that we're leveraging Google Cloud and storage specifically. So I want to drill into a couple of those items we talked about briefly. I mentioned that workflow automation is a big key that we're hearing from our customers as something they're focused on. We have a rules engine as a part of our platform that automates a lot of the items we just talked about. I talked about syndication, I talked about transcoding, talked about publishing to the CDN. We want you to be able to do all of that using a rules engine. In other words, just selecting checkboxes, yes, no, do this, do this. If we receive content from here, publish it to here. We want to make that available to you in the form of a product that you can just log into this platform and use, freeing up your video engineers to focus on more important items. So this is what the rules engine looks like, and we're able to group content based on metadata, publish content based on rules, and a lot of our existing customers have seen success with it, including CBS and Scripps Network Interactive. So automation is one of the areas we're really focused on because we see the value that the customer sees in it. And another big part of that automation is in live to VOD. We want to be able to take this live content and store it as VOD easily, and we don't want to have a lot of upkeep around that. So we want the schedule to be easily set up. We want the SCUDdy triggers in the broadcast to be easily accessible. And we want you to be able to quickly sort of set and forget how your live content is going to get recorded and how long you want to store it. So it is all based on SCUDdy markers. We do a lot of the stream management we do is all based on the triggers in the stream itself, but it gives us the ability to automatically create cuts in a live stream and even go through a previous live stream, so an existing VOD asset, and cut all of the commercials out of it for you. And we create what's called kind of a clean asset there, where you have, perhaps you're pulling this, you're receiving the stream downstream from someone else. You've bought the rights to those ad slots and you want to remove the existing creatives. We have a feature called Auto Cut to do that. And it, again, provides you with that clean asset, which you can then remonetize or monetize with different content, depending on what sort of advertisements you've negotiated for. So the final sort of feature we've been working on and been focused on for automation is a feature we're calling Virtual Live Linear, or VOD to Live. We want to take your VOD assets and drop them into a playlist, really just a drag and drop user interface, and create a live stream that you can then publish out to your users. And it creates kind of a live-like experience, which whatever it is about live video that drives users to it. I was reading an article about something Facebook's been doing recently about a new feature they're doing around VOD to live as well, because live content has such a higher view rate than VOD content. I think it's something like 10x the view rate. So we're trying to create that same sort of experience where you take VOD content you have, and maybe you want to schedule it for its initial release, but you want to make it available only at a certain time to sort of create that element of timeliness for your users. So that's what our VOD to live offering is here. Another real reason we're focused on it is that a lot of our viewers, or a lot of our customers' viewers, I should say, are international. And so when these users are sleeping during sort of these live broadcasts, They're missing the initial release. We need to make that easily available as VOD. And the reason that is because we might have a different set of creatives that we want to publish to our international users. We're not going to advertise to Europe the same way we advertise to JPAC, the same way we advertise to North America. So live to VOD and this VOD to live feature gives us an opportunity to do that. Quickly take the live, capture it, and readjust the advertisements to get the best CPM possible. So getting the best CPM possible is obviously the biggest part of monetization. How can we drive the value of the inventory up so that your advertisers really want to pay for your content? That is where our sort of dynamic ad insertion comes in. We do two types of ad insertion here. We do server side and we do client side. Server side is what's become more and more interesting to us, or we often call it ad stitching. And it's been interesting because it allows our sellers or our publishers to sort of cut down on what they're experiencing from ad blocking. And it gives them sort of a universal playback experience across device. So in other words, if we're doing all of the ad loading on the server side, we don't have to worry about how the iPhone is going to load the ad versus how the Android will. So the server side is giving us a more performant experience, but also no ad blockers to worry about. So we've developed a DAI feature here, and it works with all sort of VAST compliant ad servers. And the two main ones I mentioned briefly was DoubleClick for publishers and Freewheel as well. And then we serve this content to all of our players, and we have our players on all the connected devices. So really across the spectrum, we have you covered from a DAI perspective. So we've talked a little bit about what the video offerings are on top of Google Cloud, why video, what we're focusing on in video when it comes to automation, when it comes to monetization. But I'd like to talk a little bit about now what's underlying all of our video offerings and how we think there's a lot of benefit now that we're hosted on top of Google Cloud. So these are going to be some of the advantages that we've seen since joining Google and being a part of this group. The first and largest one, in my opinion, is the Google Network. So the Google Network is a privately owned and privately administrated network that is global in reach and scale. So we have edge points. If you look at the little diagram here, we have each of the yellow dots is a point of presence or a pop point, and we have several hundred of these where we are making content available to our users. And really, as close as you are to a pop point is the only amount of space you'll be on a public internet channel. So if your office is within a mile of one of these pop points, it's only that mile that you'll be on the public internet, and after that, you're on Google's network. So this is the network that YouTube has run on for years. If you're familiar or a big user of YouTube, they do have very quick start times and player load times and very low latency. And that's something we're able to sort of take and sell to our customers as a serious value add for people with high bandwidth requirements, but also large file sizes. So Google CDN, over 90 sites around the world for caching. We're building more and more data centers. But the biggest thing I want to highlight about this network, I mentioned global a couple times here, but your site receives a single IP address that works everywhere. So we don't require regional DNS, and there's not as much regional management for each of the sections of the Google network. And that's why we like to talk about it as a global first. By default, everything is replicated globally. We talk about that as a major advantage because a lot of the competitor networks we work with, or our customers have worked with, require regional DNS and require regional provisioning. So it's just not something you deal with when on the Google network. So another piece that we touched on briefly is machine learning. And the machine learning offerings we've been working on, machine learning or AI, whatever we want to call it, is only applicable to assets and data that's stored on the Google Cloud. So in other words, we're not going to be, you're not going to be able to take advantages of the machine learning APIs we have access to in its full capacity. If you're trying to work outside of Google Cloud, we make it available as a part of Google Cloud and think there's a lot of advantages to it. And again, the biggest ones that are coming up for us are metadata enrichment. What is in my video assets? What is in my files? What have I missed over the previous years? Workflow automation and monetization. How can we get better about figuring out how long the ad break should be, where we should chop and insert ads? So these are the things that machine learning have really been leading to, and there's actually several more specific use cases I want to talk about briefly. So I would encourage you to go to cloud.google.com and take a look at some of these APIs as they're available for you right now to go ahead and demo and test and to start training your own models. But what we're seeing from our media customers is that speech to text is very big. Translation is a very big ask. Speech to text is very large. I mean, just for the idea of auto captioning and to take away sort of that whole task force required for sitting and listening and concurrently typing each caption as it comes across. We do have offerings for sentiment analysis based on how the to monitor customer satisfaction and then classification as well to really just enrich the metadata around your content. So media has a lot of great machine learning use cases, and we work on them every day. One of the things that makes our machine learning offering so exciting is that if you're familiar with TensorFlow is the Google Cloud open source machine learning algorithm that you can download and work on, your team can work on today. So it's just our open sourced code we made available for the world to create these machine learning models as well. But the reason we've been able to be so successful with that is the creation of the chip specifically for machine learning. So that's called a TPU. It's on the right there, and it's a TensorFlow processing unit. And it's made sort of our compute intensive jobs like video transcoding from an ML perspective more effective. And then GPUs on the left. Google Cloud has been a big time early adopter of providing graphical processing units for complex workloads, things that require multiple renditions to be managed at once. And transcoding is a great example of that. Another big example is rendering. And Google Cloud has made another acquisition of a company specifically for rendering, and it uses GPUs a lot of times on the cloud to spin up and spin down render farms to help you finish your render jobs faster. But so the advantage of GPUs and TPUs are another reason that working on top of a cloud infrastructure has been very beneficial to us as Envato, having joined Google over coming up on 2 years. So finally, I'd like to talk about some of how we're solving problems today and who we're doing it for. And one of the use cases we talk the most about is the work we've done with NBC Universal. NBC Universal is somebody we've been working with for several years now, and they're a great example of somebody who's been using our live players both on web and on mobile. So we're delivering the VOD content for them all the way through Hulu to YouTube to DirecTV. We're doing work for their cable brands like USA Network and Sci-Fi and Bravo. We're providing repackaged live streams to each of these brands and destinations. So this includes a lot of their affiliate stations, which they have 260 plus affiliate stations that are using the Google encoder to upload and distribute live content. So there's a number of this was really probably our first. It's been the customer that we've been focused on from a scale perspective, just because they've been very have had a lot of challenging problems for us to go and solve. I mean, problems around how many creatives we can insert during the course of a month, and how can we do it with very limited performance issues. And we've been able to successfully power these O&O stations, these affiliate stations, with both live VOD and with ad insertion as well. So it's been a great relationship for us, and we're always being challenged to innovate for new features for this customer. Another customer we spend a lot of time sort of focusing on how can we improve our services, and how can we get ahead of really the industry? Where is the industry going? And Univision has been a big supporter of us in that, where they come to us with great asks around how can we be smarter about live to VOD? How can we be more efficient with the use of our VOD assets and our live publishing? And so, we've been working with them now since 2009, and it's been over the last couple of years with our transition to Google that Univision has started to really embrace a cloud-first approach. And they've done it for a number of reasons. Obviously they've been a big media shop for quite a while, but now they're getting to the point where they're seeing sort of a big opportunity to combine who they're getting their cloud assets from, and then who they're getting their video workflow from. And they're seeing synergies between the two to say, I would love it if my storage vendor was also my live streaming vendor, because I don't want to have to move all of this content and pay the egress costs to go from one cloud provider to another. So we had a presentation last year in San Francisco at the Google Next conference, and Univision presented with us just about what their migration to the cloud has looked like. And the biggest reason they were focused on this was scale, right? They have a number of brands under the Univision logo that they're managing and trying to grow. And so knowing that they were going to be doing more work with Gizmodo and Fusion and The Onion, some of the other brands they're associated with, they knew they had to have a cloud-first strategy. So in our presentation, they talked about, hey, we need more capacity. We need to do transcoding at scale. And we need to be able to do this internationally. We can't be doing everything. Our North America team wasn't going to be capable of handling everything in the States only, so that we provided them an international login to this cloud-based environment we have, so they can manage transcoding jobs and edit jobs regardless of where their company is staffed. And since seeing it, they've seen a lot of performance improvements, and they've seen a lot of stability improvements. And, that's a large part of Envato's doing with video workflow, but another piece is just what Google Cloud brings to the table from an SLA standpoint. We're talking about 5 nines of reliability for storage, and compute is in the same area, where very, very high availability. So I mentioned the Next conference that Univision presented at with us last year, and there's actually a number of media presentations scheduled for Next this year as well. And if you haven't heard about the conference, the Google Next conference is simply a yearly. Well, it's more than just yearly. It's once a year in San Francisco, but there's also ones around the world to get together with all of our cloud providers and talk about the new solutions we've been developing on Google Cloud and sort of the industry solutions around that. So what is media and entertainment doing? What is healthcare doing? What is finance doing on top of Google Cloud? And so if anyone is interested in doing that, just shameless plug here, you can definitely email us at our email alias, which I'll provide there, or you can go to cloudwithgoogle.com /next18 to register. And it'd be, like I said, it'd be a great opportunity to meet the media and entertainment team, the Google Cloud team that's focused on how can we improve broadcast workflow and digital workflow, and a good chance to get together and ask questions about what's coming up next. So feel free to check out that link. With that, I want to check in here on the chat to see if we have questions that have come up, and if there's anything we want to address here. Otherwise, I'll be able to give you a few minutes back here as we're wrapping up about 4 minutes early. So, Okay, great. So thank you all for joining. And really, if there are outstanding questions, go ahead and email mediasales@google.com. That'll go directly to myself and my team. We'll go to myself and the rest of the individuals on the media and entertainment team. You can go to cloud.google.com/media, and then also to look at the Envato legacy website as well, which we still have in production. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Please reach out if you have questions, and we'll look forward to connecting with you. Bye.